Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Achibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. Now, we're going to be talking about miscarriages, which is like a term our guest, Dr. Mensah, will be explaining that shortly. But when it comes to pregnancy and delivery, you know that we at the Brain and Body Foundation are very, 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 very concerned about that time period. Because if anything goes wrong, that first, let's say, people talk about the 1,000 days from conception to the age of 2. If anything goes wrong, that could set you up, really, your child for the rest of his or her life is handicapped for the most part. And as you know, we in Africa, we don't have access to the best technology, medical technology that is. So it just makes sense. It makes sense for us to get it right from the beginning. And by getting it right, so we're not just talking about the healthcare professionals, we're not just talking about what happens at the antenatal clinic or during the delivery or the postnatal clinic. We're talking about what the parents, specifically the mothers, need to know and do prior to pregnancy. So their bodies are ready to receive a child, are ready to receive a healthy egg, a healthy sperm, get fertilized, get conceived, and maintain a healthy pregnancy for the entire period. And at the time of birth, to ensure that things, of course, there's nothing is 100%, right? But there are things that you can do to ensure that your child is healthy during that critical period. And that's so, so important. As you know, over 70% of births and deliveries happen outside of a hospital in Nigeria. So again, this underscores the importance of educating the general populace about what to do so that they can take their health into their hands. Thank you again for joining us. Our guest today is Dr. Mensah, who is one of the founders of the Mensah Medical Clinic based in Chicago. He's no stranger to our show. He's been on several times. So welcome again, Doc.
Thank you very much, sir.
We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. So we always appreciate the wisdom and the experience that you share with us. Now, you are known to be primarily a brain person. You're the one who deals with those brain conditions in children and adults. So what does all that have to do with miscarriages and pregnancy? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, you're correct. And many times I tell people, so what is a brain doctor doing talking about these body disorders and so forth? What we've come to see in orthomolecular medicine is that the science around molecular activity is not simply relegated to the brain. Basically, it applies to the entire human system. So understanding how the system works at a molecular level is key for general foundational health and development of any person. So now we talk about comprehensive medicine, not just brain medicine or heart medicine, but comprehensive medicine and the ramifications of molecular changes for all types of different situations. We've talked heavily about the use of certain agents during pregnancy. We've talked about things that affect women and menstrual cycles. We've talked about things that affect women and depression, cognitive and physical issues, all revolving around nutrients and molecular, what we call dysregulation, disorganized behavior of your molecules, as opposed to the wonderful, complicated, yet very necessary organized way that your molecules move and flow. So there's tremendous application in the world of obstetrics and gynecology. I know we counsel quite a few doctors in those fields on approaching some very difficult and previously challenging disorders. So it's no surprise that now there are applications to pre-pregnancy and pregnancy from a molecular perspective as well.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. So let's talk about miscarriages. So why don't we start? I think we've talked about what makes for a healthy pregnancy. I think we've done that in the past. Why is it that sometimes things go wrong?
The most common reason for things going wrong is actually a genetic abnormality. we oftentimes truly mourn the loss. It's 4 weeks, 5 weeks, we found out we were pregnant, and then all of a sudden the baby is not there anymore. The pre-baby is not there anymore. And, we become very distraught. And it is a sad thing. But I want people to realize the vast majority of the time, greater than likely 80 to 90% of the time, there was a very serious abnormality going on with that pre-baby that would not have allowed it to survive after birth, that would not have allowed it to thrive in life in general. And so it was probably the best thing that would happen. So technically speaking, that is the vast majority of the time for most people when there's a loss early in gestation. It's because the survivability of the baby was in question to begin with.
So 80 to 90%. So that's interesting. I had no idea it was that high. Okay, so that's number one. What will be number 2 and 3?
Number 2, now this is where things start to get very, very interesting. Depending on the sex of the baby.
Really?
Now, yes, you've heard, and I think we've all heard that, female babies are stronger than male babies. So more male babies tend to die, but once you get past a certain age, the strength of the male baby catches up, and then all things said and done, but female babies are stronger babies. Well, there's probably
female older folks too. Some would argue are stronger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But what we actually now understand, there is a very, very powerful correlation between nutrient health and survivability based upon sex as well. So here's something many people don't know. If you see a family and it's the husband, the wife, and almost all the children seem to be girls. In the old days, we used to say, oh, this man, all he does is put out girls. In the ancient days, we used to blame the women for the sex, which we now know is not true entirely. Or is it?
Is it?
Is it? What we understand is the process of spermatogenesis, the process of what is needed in order for a baby or a male, genetically male offspring to develop and to grow. It requires a tremendous amount of one very specific nutrient, much more so than in the development of a female. And that's because this element is needed for secondary male sexual characteristics to develop. This one nutrient is necessary for the sexual identity, so to speak, of sperm development, of spermatic cord, sexual organs. All those things requires an extremely high level of this nutrient. So much so that if this nutrient is not there in the woman carrying the child, this child will abort. And that nutrient is zinc.
Really?
Zinc is required in huge amounts in this system for the secondary sexual characteristics of a male seed to develop in utero, in the womb. And Dr. David, we've talked how many times about how deficient the entire world is in zinc.
Right, right.
Yet many times we don't recognize when someone says, I miscarried the baby, and they're talking to me, a patient or a consult or whatever. And I ask them, do you by any chance know the sex of the developing baby that was lost? Now, most of the time we don't know. Most of the time we don't know. But for those who actually dig deeper because they think there's a genetic mistake that happened, they'll oftentimes find out it was a male. And then I say something very ominous to many people. I said, it is entirely possible that there may not have been enough zinc in the system to allow that male to develop and therefore survive in the womb, let alone be born.
That is interesting, and that just raises all kinds of questions. So one question would be, how soon do you know what the sex of your baby is for our audience?
Well, typically speaking, unfortunately, the when the organs are actually all developed, okay, is really somewhere in the 6 to 8 week mark. Okay, that's when baby just really everything is done. That's when you just kind of stop developing and start growing. Okay. So that's a very, very critical piece. But now let's talk about this thing here with regard to the zinc for a moment. Zinc gets depleted by stress. Is pregnancy not a very stressful situation?
Absolutely.
And not just for the wife, for the husband too.
Yep.
Okay. But more so, the wife is now having to provide the nutritional density. The wife is there, the mother, the one carrying the baby, is there having to provide sustenance, food, for not just herself, but for the growing child person within. Most of the time, most of us are walking around malnourished to begin with.
Yep.
Just for ourselves. Now we have a growing being that is going to make sure it is fed before you are. Whatever you get, the baby gets. But nutrient-wise, the baby can't get what you don't have. So if you do not have appropriately high levels of zinc, there's a greater chance that a male baby will not develop into baby status and may spontaneously abort.
Is there a time period? Like we know, we talked about folic acids being critical for the first trimester.
Correct.
Is there a time period for you to be sure that your zinc is optimal to preserve the life of the male baby?
Same thing from the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
So when we talk about prenatal vitamins, okay, there's something extremely missing. We should be talking about prenatal zinc.
Right.
Clearly. That one element alone, absolutely. That one element alone can mean the difference between ongoing life and death for future males.
Doc, we're going to, at this point, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Don't go away, folks.
Absolutely.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Dr. David, and I'm here with Dr. Albert Mensah, and we're continuing our talk about miscarriages. So, Doc, zinc, that is crazy. I mean, you would think that with an element as important, or a nutrient as important as that everybody, that would be part of everybody's prenatal vitamin regimen. But you and I know that's not so. Why?
Because they don't know. Science continues to evolve, and the idea of what is necessary, there's more challenge that happens. I always say, Dr. David, in medicine, we have a cycle. We think we're very smart. Then we think we're smarter and we do things more intensely, only to find out they become a problem. At that point in time, we're dumb. Then when we realize we're dumb, we start to get smart again because we realize we're dumb in the first place. And then we start making corrective measures and we're smart again. And this cycle continues to repeat itself. Okay.
But here's the thing, Doc. I mean, in the US, the privilege, people are privileged to have the benefits of being, there's a medical system that can help to correct things. Or there's a social system that can help to support you if things go wrong, maybe not perfectly. But in third world countries and developing countries, there's nothing. The single mother or the poor people from a remote area are on their own. So they've got this child whom they love dearly, but they are saddled with medical expenses that they will continue for the rest of their lives. And there's almost, in many cases, no hope that that child will improve significantly. So that's why it's so important what you and I are talking about now, because like you said, some genetic conditions or genetic conditions account for about 80% of all premature deaths or miscarriages. And so that, in a way, is a merciful way of taking care of things. But if that
Yes.
child survives with a severe genetic condition in a country like Nigeria, in the remote areas, well, it's just going to be tough sledding because they wouldn't know how to take care of this. And even if they took them to a hospital, because the technology and the expertise and the equipment simply aren't in most hospitals, you need to take care of a child like that, it's going to be a problem. So it's so important that we know what you and I are talking about now, these important things about putting in zinc, knowing when to back off from folic acid during the pregnancy. So important that people know these things. And of course, healthcare professionals to know these things so they can adequately advise their patients. Because people like you are the people who are coming back to us and saying, this is what happens. We've seen the data. We've done this with our patients. We've seen what happens. And it's very important for you for you as a person, individual, to understand these things. So other than zinc, what else is there that is you think is important or is missing that can cause a miscarriage?
Well, what we spoke specifically about males here, and that was regard to zinc. That's one of the most important factors present. In general, the overall condition of the woman's health, nutritionally, the baby needs some things to just grow and survive. Wonderful nutrients like, vitamin D, vitamin B6, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium. It's very funny. We forget why we eat. We eat food because the food gets broken down into nutrients. The very nutrients we're talking about is what the idea of food is there to do in the natural realm, right, to come down to these basic elements. And we know that malnutrition is highly prevalent in certain poor peripheral areas in almost any country. And so, number one, the idea of good nutrition is really about having good access to core nutrients. Okay, so let's say you don't have the nutritional capacity, all right, but perhaps you'd have access to, for whatever reason, to vitamins. Okay, getting a good, well-rounded general multivitamin may actually be a very, very, very good way to go. Okay, because at least there's a nutrient density of some degree in those types of things. Now, we have products like Ensure in certain countries for those who are elderly or in the hospital, and they cannot get a good diet in. They cannot eat, chew, swallow, whatever have you. This is a liquid. Well, there are liquid products all over the place that have vitamin density. And it certainly would not hurt to have one of these bottles, 1 to 2 of these bottles per day, if you're in an area where food is somewhat challenged, if you have access to those types of bottled drinks. And, the ones that say, well, this is for diet, this is for, to help you move through weight loss. Interestingly enough, they're not there for the weight loss, they're there for you not eating as a substitute for the food. And yet those things are nutrient dense. They've got plenty of nutrients in there that you actually would not get in a poor meal. So there are a few different ways to look at this depending on the resources available. Okay. There are actually bottled nutrients. There's some nutrient water that's being created all over the place. And there are a variety of nutritional products that come in liquid form. So that's another way to now look at how do we get nutrients into a poor region or people who have poor access to healthcare and not a very good dietary source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that is so important for people for people to have. But then again, the question is multivitamins and multi-minerals. So those are not all of them offer these things, and the liquid bottles might be a problem, especially in hot regions like Nigeria, getting them into the remote areas. So in the final analysis, in my opinion, the good quality multivitamins that come in capsules or tablets are the best way to go, especially considering the temperature and preservation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, Doc, it looks like our time is gone, and it's amazing how time does fly so quickly. We definitely want to continue this conversation, Doc, but at this time we're going to have to take a break here and then to reconvene next time. Thank you so much. Any final you want to leave with us?
Indeed. Remember your zinc.
Yep.
Zinc is a multitasking from both brain and body perspective agent. The creator was very powerful in this. The smart thing to do, use one thing to do many things. The problem, if you're deficient in that one thing, many things suffer. So let's give our male babies a better chance. And so we can now have a better one-on-one conversation as adults because there are as many males as there are females. Let's give our male babies a chance to grow and develop. Take your zinc every day throughout the pregnancy. Okay.
Amen to that. And like you and I know, I mean, we see a lot of kids with ADD and other brain disorders and neurodevelopmental problems. And again, zinc is a culprit, or the lack of zinc is a culprit there. So very important. Very important. We need to talk about ADD and ADHD very soon, Doc. But absolutely. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Folks, remember to stay tuned. Our videos are on the website, brainandbodyfoundation.org. If you have any questions, just reach out to me or my staff, and we'll be sure to get back with you. God bless. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.